My name is Nolan Foster, and today I'm going to be sharing a paper that I wrote. It's called A Deeper Look into My Psyche. It's about sort of the things that make me me, focusing specifically on mental conditions that I have. The first category is preoccupation with an abuser. It is not uncommon to fixate on the abuser, the relationship with the abuser, or getting revenge for the abuse. How this applies to me is I had an intense desire to hurt those who caused all this stress and abuse that I experienced. The next category is relationship issues. And it says here, relationships may suffer due to difficulties trusting and interacting, and because of a negative self-view. A person with either condition may develop unhealthy relationships because they are what the person has known in the past. This applies to me because ever since everything happened, I've been avoiding having sex and other passionate feelings. I have not been able to love anyone since everything happened because I'm afraid of what might come next. The next category is changes in beliefs and worldview. People with either complex PTSD or just regular old PTSD may hold a negative view of the world and the people in it, or lose faith in previously held beliefs. How this applies to me is that my philosophy on the value of human life has changed very significantly. There was a time when I thought that every human life was precious and that everyone was entitled to live. And whenever someone died, I saw it as unfair. Now, it has changed a lot. In fact, I don't hold much value in any human life. I don't think anyone's really entitled to it. And that's just my opinion, of course. Not everyone's going to share that opinion with me. But moving on. Next is a negative self-view. Complex PTSD can cause a person to view themselves negatively and feel helpless, guilty, or ashamed. They often consider themselves to be different from other people. Now, this one is interesting because it doesn't all apply to me. In fact, I don't feel helpless and I don't feel guilty or ashamed. I have found that guilt is an emotion that I don't feel often anymore. And I do view myself as many bad things at times, but guilt doesn't ever enter the equation. It's a very interesting symptom. Next are some behaviors that relate to PTSD and complex PTSD. The first one is abusing alcohol or drugs. Now, if you know me, you know that I definitely had a problem with this in the past. I would drink really unsafe amounts of whiskey, and I would go to school high on opioids or cough medicine, whatever was within reach, really. Next is avoiding unpleasant situations by becoming people pleasers. This applies to me because whenever a friend asks me for something, even if I don't particularly like this friend, or even if I'm mad at them, I'll still do what they want because I really don't want to make them mad. I don't want an unpleasant situation, and I don't want to be abandoned. Next is lashing out at minor criticisms. This is more of a past thing. I don't do this much anymore. But say I have cooked someone a nice meal, and someone tells me it's too salty. I used to freak out about something like that, and it wasn't healthy. I would lash out at the people who were criticizing me, which is unfair because it's a criticism. Those are very fair things to give. And the next is self-harm. Now, 5 months ago, I had a very bad problem with that. I actually had a suicide attempt, which was it was bad. That's all I can really say. I don't want to describe it any more than that. There's some bad juju involved with all that. So, moving on. Next, I'll be talking about my suspected borderline personality disorder. Here's a note, though. Patients under the age of 18 cannot be diagnosed with personality disorders, because their psyche is not yet set in stone. This means that there's still time to improve. If you are young like me and you show these symptoms, there's still time to be treated for it. But once you're an adult, it's much harder to treat because you become stuck in your ways. The first aspect is an intense fear of abandonment, even going to extreme measures to avoid real or imagined separation or rejection. I had a problem with manipulating people to stay by my side. Regrettably, I even had a point where when someone threatened to leave me, I threatened to commit suicide if they didn't. And I did immediately apologize for that after the whole fight was over, but I do still feel bad about that for obvious reasons. Next is a pattern of unstable, intense relationships, such as idealizing someone one moment and then suddenly believing the person doesn't care enough or is cruel. And I had a problem with this, actually. Whenever I was in a relationship with one of my exes, one day I would just love the crap out of her, and I would all the time, but it may not necessarily show. The other moment I would be, crying because I thought they were just the cruelest person in the world. And it's even affected a friendship of mine. Whenever a friend would need some space, I would take that as they want to leave me, like I'm being abandoned. And I'll think of them as very cruel. Next is rapid changes in self-identity and self-image. This includes shifting goals and values. So, as aforementioned, my philosophies on the value of life and entitlement to it have drastically changed. So that has already been mentioned, but it's still important to note. Next is periods of stress-related paranoia and loss of contact with reality. Sometimes when I'm in the dark alone, I do have intense periods of paranoia, especially if I was watching some kind of scary movie or something like that, which, people with PTSD really shouldn't be exposing themselves to that, but sometimes I have to indulge myself. Next is threats of suicide or self-injury, often in response to fear of separation or rejection. And I have mentioned this before. I did threaten to hurt myself whenever someone was going to leave me, which was a terrible thing to do. I realize I don't really feel guilty because in the situation, the situation was bad. Nobody was making good decisions there. Next is ongoing feelings of emptiness. Now this is a big thing. I have actually written a few songs about this, particularly one that list of these disorders includes depression, which I have been diagnosed with, specifically major depressive disorder, alcohol or other substance misuse, also one of my diagnoses, anxiety disorders, such as PTSD, that is in the category of anxiety disorders, bipolar disorder. This one's interesting because I'm fairly certain, and so are my doctors, we are fairly certain that I do not have bipolar disorder. However, I was diagnosed with it at one point, but it was at a very shoddy hospital. Next is post-traumatic stress disorder, which I have talked about, PTSD, and I am diagnosed with that. The next is attention deficit hyperactive disorder, which is ADHD. Now, I've been tested for this, and it's confirmed that I do not have this disorder, but it does often come along with borderline and PTSD. Next is just an overview of what this recording has been talking about. So, I have written here, my psyche is a very interesting one, full of related conditions. The root cause of all of them seem to be a case of complex PTSD, which I believe may have been heavily influenced by my family's religion and the guilt I felt because of it. Guilt can be a great motivator, but it doesn't always go as planned. Religious guilt is designed to make you feel obligated to obey the religion and its teachings, but in my case, it motivated me to develop a negative self-image as well as suicidal tendencies. The guilt develop a PTSD-like mental condition in my early youth, which led to my making unwise choices, which led to actual complex PTSD, among my other diagnoses. While it is possible that I am just genetically inclined to experience these conditions, the setting and environment I grew up in played a definite factor. Even after extensive treatment, it is almost impossible for me to find motivation to complete schoolwork, and somewhat difficult to control my urges to end the lives of those who have abused me extensively. My ex verbally and emotionally and sometimes physically abused me. I will not be providing any of these names, by the way. Someone from a former hospital who physically assaulted me, and a kid at my long-term center who verbally and sexually abused me. I will continue to fight these urges, and I will overcome them, but my problem with motivation to complete school may be a different story. I hope this entry offers some insight into what influences me to do some of the things I do. This has been a deeper look into my psyche and what factors caused my conditions. This was a heavy video, but you could also check out my music, which is on this channel as well. I should have a link in the description. Now, forgive me for the shameless plug, and have a nice day.